Story 1. In Jaws, the mayor thought it would be a good idea to keep the beaches open despite grave warnings from a shark scientist and the police chief. It contains one of my favorite lines from the mayor. Hooper explains the power and size of the shark they are dealing with, noting that the graffiti on the town billboard is proportionally accurate. The mayor responds, "Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name in National Geographic." Story 2. Many characters in Harry Potter would be affected if the Ministry of Magic believed that Voldemort had returned. Story 3. If the negligent camp counselors at Camp Crystal Lake had never let Jason Voorhees drown, his mother would not have gone on a murderous rampage, and Jason would not have had to come back to life to avenge her death. Dozens of innocent people would not have been killed, and Jason could have grown up to be a decent citizen. You had one job, camp counselors. Story 4. The entire crew of the Prometheus had two reckless crew members stranded underground during a storm and decided it was not a good idea to provoke a completely unknown alien species. The Nostromo crew should have performed a second scan before allowing the crew member who had just been sexually assaulted to move freely around the ship. Story 5. Everyone in Evil Dead would be fine if people stopped reading ominous Latin. Story 6. Pretty much everybody from The Lost World, Jurassic Park, International Genetic Technologies, InGen, set up a defensible position after capturing a bunch of herbivores to bring back for a park in San Diego. Then Nick, played by Vince Vaughn, breaks out all the dinosaurs, which proceed to rampage through the camp and destroy the perimeter walls. Since he has been sniffing glue since kindergarten, Nick decides it would be a fantastic idea to bring an injured baby Tyrannosaurus Rex back to his team. This predictably draws in the parents, which eat Eddie. After being rescued by the InGen team he had just endangered, Nick sabotages the bullets in the elephant gun carried by the lead InGen contractor, the one weapon they have against the Tyrannosaurus Rexes whose fury Nick brought down on them. When the hunter has a Rex in his sights, he is unable to put the animal down and save everyone. This leads to some of them being eaten and the rest running into raptor territory and mostly getting picked off. After losing all the herbivores and with a tranquilized Tyrannosaurus Rex on site, InGen decides the only way to recoup their losses is to bring the Rex back to San Diego. That decision kicks off the disaster in the city. The movie presents Nick as part of a fringe environmental movement, supposedly a fanatical animal rights activist. Based on his decisions, he seems more like a suicidally stupid crusader who endangers human lives. But the masterstroke of idiocy is performed by Sarah, played by Julianne Moore. This experienced field researcher travels to a dangerous island alone and without means of communication, endangering herself and the rescue team. She gets close enough to touch the dinosaurs while chastising others for disturbing so much as a blade of grass. She then performs surgery on the baby Tyrannosaurus Rex that Nick brought to the camp and, despite knowing that Tyrannosaurus Rexes track by scent, seeing them act vindicatively toward their young, and having the blood pointed out to her by InGen's big game hunter, she travels across the island in a vest covered in the baby Rex's blood. She still wears the vest and leads the Tyrannosaurus Rex to the survivors, realizing her mistake only when the Rex pokes its head into her tent. Too stupid to live is a well-known movie trope. Somehow these characters surpass that label and are too stupid for anyone else to survive their idiocy. Story 7. King Kong. In retrospect, maybe New York City was not the smartest place to bring a gigantic gorilla. Story 8. Wicked Witch of the West. Remember how Superman lives in a house where kryptonite is kept within easy reach of visitors. Story 9. The first idea is Hedwig from the Harry Potter books. Why have 7 Harry Potters in the chase scene when Hedwig died? Give polyjuice to Harry so he looks like someone else, perhaps a muggle who happened to be nearby. Use a muggle car instead of brooms, and use any muggle technology such as a walkie-talkie. Hermione and Harry grew up in the muggle world. There are some excuses for not using muggle technology in Hogwarts or other highly magical locations, but they could use it elsewhere. At the very least, have the luggage sent another way. Another idea is to summon the Hogwarts house elves to retrieve the luggage and cast distraction spells. I do not know if a house elf could have transported Harry. Story 10. This question is practically written for the friends of Derek Zoolander. I'm sad now. Does anyone want to get me an orange mocha frappuccino? Story 11. All of Jason Voorhees' victims from Part 6 onward would still be alive if Tommy Jarvis had not angrily stabbed Jason's corpse with the gate spike that conducted lightning and resurrected him. You should have controlled yourself and just burned him, Tommy. Story 12. Hank would still be alive if Walter White did not keep books in a bathroom. Story 13. Beck in Netflix's You. Hell, if she alone had more common sense, she'd still be alive. Story 14. We can't get a visual on the creature. It must have escaped its enclosure. I'll go in to investigate. Wait, before you enter a death trap with a genetically modified killing machine or abomination, why don't we turn on the tracking device to see where it is? Oh yeah, it would have been pretty stupid to rush in when you were literally about to activate its chip. Ha, it's still there. Now I see it. It looks like it can camouflage. Good thing we didn't release it to go on a killing spree in the park. Now go spend some time with your nephews like you promised, you insensitive bitch. Story 15. I remember in one of the Superman movies there is a tornado, and while Clark and his mother reach safety, his father is left behind about 200 feet away in the car. He shakes his head when Clark is about to save him because that would expose his identity. There is total chaos with the huge tornado, and Clark could have picked him up instantly without anyone noticing. Instead, his father dies for no reason. Story 16. All of the cast of Red Dead Redemption 2 would survive into the original Red Dead Redemption if Dutch understood that a man you have known for 6 months is less trustworthy than the man you have raised for 20 years. To clarify, if Micah were not trusted, the Blackwater incident would be prevented, so the gang would not need to flee. If they did not flee, Strauss would never lend money, and Arthur would not contract tuberculosis from the debtor. Story 17. Sirius Black is a character from Harry Potter. If Harry had listened to Hermione's warning that he was walking into a trap, the entire battle at the Ministry would not have occurred. Story 18. Maud Flanders would have been fine if she had waited in the aisle for the women launching t-shirts to finish their halftime show, or at least been more aware of what everyone in her section was looking at. Of course, if Homer had not ducked, I am sure he could have taken the direct hit from the shirt barrage and been fine thanks to his lower center of gravity. Story 19. Apollo Creed. How did Rocky not throw in the towel? Afterwards, Rocky prevented the doctors from reaching him because he held him for so long. Story 20. Sending a major part of the Dothraki army straight ahead in pitch black was, in my opinion, a questionable decision. Story 21. Quentin Coldwater from The Magicians. Don't just stand there. Toss the bloody thing in and get out. Story 22. Pretty much everyone in The Lord of the Rings would be different if Elrond had just shoved Isildur into the lava. Story 23. 299 people would still be alive in the John Wick universe if Isef Tarasov had not killed the puppy. He is a legend. Of course he would hunt you down for killing it. Story 24. Name a Disney villain who died who was not undone by their own hubris. Gaston could have returned to his village if he had heeded the beast's orders to leave the castle. But he became a petty, obsessive bully who only wanted Belle. He could have had many admirers if he had accepted that Belle did not want him and moved on. Jafar could have given Aladdin a bag of gold and told him to start a new life elsewhere. But he chose betrayal and treachery. Scar could have left Pride Rock after his defeat by Simba. But he stayed, behaved vindicatively, and caused more harm. Ursula could have retreated to Triton's domain and enjoyed life. Yet she instead tried to destroy Ariel's life and transformed into a giant despite the danger posed by Eric's ship. Dr. Facilier could have restrained his use of magic, but he let it control him. Turbo spent his time tormenting Vanellope instead of enjoying his position as King Candy. Since no one knew Vanellope was a princess, he had no legitimate reason to feel threatened. Story 25. Bing Bong from Inside Out. The characters literally pass a tube that could send any memory up to headquarters. If they had just used that tube and then used the train of thought on the way back, everything would have gone perfectly. Story 26. Why did Quicksilver in Age of Ultron not pick Hawkeye up and run away with him instead of jumping in front of him? Story 27. Clark Kent's father in Man of Steel? That was one of the dumbest revisions of a comic character's origin of all time. The whole point of his father dying of a heart attack originally was to show that Superman cannot do everything and cannot save everyone. He is not above nature or God. In the new version, his father is dying in a tornado and asks him not to save him so his powers will not be revealed. Who would let their father die for that reason? Why would anyone assume Clark had powers if he saved his father? He could run into the tornado, grab his father, and move him out of sight. They could claim they were thrown far away and survived by luck, or that they prayed and were saved. Nobody sane would think the boy has superpowers. Story 28. After episode 1, the Queen of Naboo, who had the credits, could have bought Shmi's freedom and hired her to work on an estate or provided job training and education so she could work elsewhere. Sidious, Jar Jar, the Jedi Council, Yoda, and Obi-Wan could have done the same to gain influence or provide peace of mind to someone in whom they had a vested interest. Shmi had to remain a slave on Tatooine to justify a familial connection explaining Luke's presence there. In some parallel dimension, Star Wars was released in chronological order and therefore made more sense. Story 29. Light from Death Note would have won if Mikami had not used the Death Note to write Misa's name. Mikami was foolish not to listen to someone he considered a god. Story 30. Tony Stark, Black Widow, and half of the universe would still be alive if Doctor Strange had used his portal to cut off Thanos' hand like Wong did to Thanos' minion at the start. Story 31. Everyone on the ship in Alien would have survived if they had listened to Ripley when she refused to allow the alien onto the ship. Story 32. Anya in Buffy. Do not position her as a lead character only to be killed off in the finale by needlessly putting her in the path of demon spillover entering Sunnydale. Story 33. If Ned Stark had told Bobby B that the rotten Lannister runts were not his children, had not trusted Peter Baelish, and had gone out to help Stannis, the War of the Five Kings might have been avoided a bit longer, until most major houses rose against the Lannisters. Even being the richest of the Seven Kingdoms would not have helped them. Story 34. A lot of characters from the 100. Poor Wells, many of them out-weather people, many people from the Ark, many grounders, a likable grounder, a man searching for his girlfriend who snapped and massacred many civilians after someone gave her an assault rifle, and those who killed the soldiers who were there to protect them. Oh, the 100. In its defense, you can understand why. These people grew up on a space station, not in massive force. Trauma and stress trigger their lizard brains a little too well. Story 35. Half the characters in Infinity War literally had the gauntlet off and then Star-Lord happened. If they had waited 20 more seconds, they could have used it on Thanos instead of firing the butt of a stupid gun. Story 36. I'm surprised no one has said this. Bruce Wayne's parents would be alive if they had not taken the shortcut through an alley. Story 37. Command, Zephyr, hobbies, mindless, zealous, run, drab, school, far-flung. Story 38. Many characters die in Harry Potter, or at least those who die in the final battle. Numerous extremely powerful forms of magic are introduced as plot elements throughout the series, yet none are used during the decisive battle that determines the fate of their world. Story 39. Hedwig. Why would the group use several other people transformed into Harry to move him from Privet Drive? Couldn't they have used an illegal portkey which they had used many times before, or the Flu Network? Anything else would have worked better and not killed Hedwig. Story 40. Point of view. Stranger Things. Bob from Season 2. If he and the others had run for one more second, he would be alive. But sigh. Story 41. I love Robb Stark, but a large portion of his family would still be alive if he had not betrayed the phrase. Story 42. Maud Flanders. Damn, Homer's stupidity actually killed someone. Story 43. Ace in One Piece. Should have fucking dragged his ass away. Story 44. Sirius Black. Instead of waiting for the Order of the Phoenix, Harry and his friends went in without much of a plan other than to get to the prophecy bubble before Voldemort could. The Order was split between protecting the students and fighting Voldemort and his followers. Realistically, the Order would have anticipated Voldemort's plan to capture the prophecy and been prepared for it. They likely had to adapt after learning that schoolchildren were rushing in recklessly to reach it first. It was another example of Harry acting impulsively and not thinking things through. Story 45. I don't think Triss had to die in the last book of the Divergent trilogy. Common sense might not have prevented her death, but the outcome could have been handled differently. Story 46. Everyone who died in Infinity War and Endgame would still be alive if Peter Quill had just let them try to remove the gauntlet from Thanos. Story 47. A large portion of the galaxy's population would have been affected if Naboo had not selected Jar Jar, a clown who was initially blacklisted from their culture for being a dangerous liability, as a representative. Story 48. The Viper. Stay out of arm's reach and pay attention to the extremely dangerous opponent you're fighting. Story 49. If Jaina and Uther had guided Arthas and helped him do only what a king should have done, destroying the city of infected citizens who would have become undead, and had followed him to Northrend, he would not have turned evil under Nezul's influence over Frostmourne. Consequently, everything that happened after Mal'Ganus's death would not have occurred. Story 50. I wondered if those girls had helped Shigechi instead of just leaving him there. Story 51. I forget his name, but he is the kid from the Firefly episode The Message. People who are looking for him catch up to the ship he is on. His crewmates say they are going to hand him over. He says no thank you in the most annoying voice I have ever heard. Then they advance on him menacingly. He takes someone hostage and his crewmates shoot him. However, they were lying the whole time and were playing a trick on his hunters without telling him. Just tell him you are playing a trick. My God, that pissed me off. Story 52. Oh, I know this one. Knives Out is one of my favorite movies, but if Marta and Harlan had waited a few more minutes to see if Harlan was actually dying from a morphine overdose, he would still be alive. Instead, they had to be dramatic. Sigh. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.